General Milley again accusing the Russians of war crimes. Number 4, Gary.
The deliberate targeting of the civilian power grid, causing excessive collateral damage and unnecessary suffering on the civilian population, is a war crime.
That's wonderful. You know, we did that with great precision during the Kosovo air campaign. That's one of the reasons that the Serbs really collapsed, because they had been depending on the Russians to provide them with food and energy during the coming winter. And when the Russians said, we can't do it because we bribed the Russians with billions of dollars to bail out on Milosevic, that's what Milosevic said, well, we have to throw in the towel because we destroyed the power grid. We destroyed their stores of fuel and energy. So that's the first thing that you do. And that's not necessarily to make the civilian population miserable. It's just an unavoidable consequence of essentially disarming your opponent. And right now, all these strikes that went in last night, the strikes that are going to go in tonight, the strikes that have been going in there for days, are aimed at destroying fuel, power, ammunition, transportation, and the occasional command and control structure.
Has anybody ever been prosecuted for war crimes for attacking fuel, infrastructure, power, and command and control?
No.
Of course not.
And if that were the case, then we would have been in front of the Nuremberg trials in 1945. That's war. On the other hand, we have lots of evidence that Ukrainians, especially these Ukrainian Nazi units, have shot the kneecaps out on Russian soldiers, that they have bound Russian citizens, in other words, Russian citizens who are living in Ukraine, in other words, Russian speakers, they have tied their hands behind their backs and then executed them by putting a bullet in the back of their heads and then burying them. We have lots of evidence for that, and no one in the West will cover it.
These people that you're referring to as Ukrainian Nazis, are they sort of freestanding militias of Ukrainian males, or are they Ukrainian military with Nazi-like political beliefs?
I would say it's more the latter, and I would sort of treat them as the guardians of the regime, of the Zelensky regime. They are used both in combat, but also for the most part now, because many of them were killed by the Russians early on in combat in eastern Ukraine. Now more and more they're being used as enforcers. In fact, a report I saw recently said that air defense crews, Ukrainian air defense crews trying to shoot down these missiles, were actually threatened by some of these groups with execution if they did not produce more downed Russian aircraft and missiles.